Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I'm going to tell you right up front the point that I'm going to make, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the broadcast, I believe, proving my point to you. As I said, the way this thing works is things just begin to come to my heart. What I need to be talking on, the program I need to be making, and this one has been coming on a long time. I have been afraid that there might not be an election, that there might actually be martial law. And unfortunately, yesterday I got some really scary news that it may be right. Now, I can't say God has told me we're not going to have an election, nor is there going to be martial law. I can't say that. But I can say that it's on my heart. And I've been wondering this for a long time, but what I'm about to tell you I got yesterday is now pretty confirming. Again, I'm not ready to say we're not going to have an election. I'm not ready to say that we're about to have martial law, but I am saying I will say it's coming if we don't pray. So what I'm about to say is if we don't pray, we are going to have martial law. There will be no election come November 3rd. All right, first of all, a brief thing to remind you, then I'll give you the updated information. As you recall, Terry Bennett had the angel Gabriel come to him back in 2010, gave him lots of things, most of which have all come to pass. Those that hadn't come to pass sound like they will. Part of what he said was, a time of dramatic changes in governments around the world, great political turmoil, and wars is coming. What the United States is going to go through is civil conflict, civil war, then invasion. The way it was told to Dmitri would be the fall of America would start with an internal revolution in America started by the communists. He goes on to say, now this is back to Terry Bennett, in the governmental arena, we'll go through a dramatic change in our government. Well, boy, that happened when Trump was elected. And there'll be a time of anarchy and chaos. Well, that has arrived. That's here right now on your 6 o'clock news. For a while, we'll have a fractional government, which means basically our government will come down to the state level because of the military stepping in and having to seize control of our federal government. You'd call it a coup, but in all honesty, it will be to help our nation. That's why the military will step in. Now, I have to say, I was hoping for the best. And the reason I say is because, you see, if there's a national emergency declared, that puts more power into the hands of the president. But if martial law is declared, that suspends the Constitution, all of our rights, all gone, for up to 5 years, and puts the military in control. Now, I had wanted to believe that there wasn't actually going to be martial law. But now, based upon this and some other things I'm about to tell you, I'm going to say that there's a high probability. Brothers and sisters, this is the time we have to pray. We have to pray that our nation does not fall, that God will give us more time. I'd like to think we have more time, but I can't guarantee it. And I think God is saying, America, you're at the crossroads. So let me read that again, because I was hoping that this was not going to be saying martial law. But now, in light of some other things I'm about to say, apparently that's exactly what this is saying. Let me read it again. In the governmental arena, we will go through a dramatic change in our government, and there will be a time of anarchy and chaos, period. That, in my opinion, has happened. Now let's go to the next thing. For a while, we'll have a fractional government, which means basically our government will come down to the state level because of the military stepping in. Now, I believe and I understand that that is probably talking about martial law. And that's the reason all of the decisions have to come down to the state level. Well, now think about that. Have we not seen many of the decisions that used to not even have to be involved with the state? Now the state is making decisions. I mean, he even said, no, that's our decision. That's not a federal decision. So we're seeing a lot of decisions now coming down to the state level, just like he was told. Down to the state level because of the military stepping in. I was wanting to believe that was these, by the way, the number is up now, 182,771 sealed indictments. I was wanting to believe that was the arrests of these people. Now, not so sure. Now, I think I'm leaning more towards we're about to see martial law. Down to the state level because of the military stepping in. For just a moment, let's assume that that's saying martial law. And let's see if that fits with the rest of what I'm about to say today, because I'm afraid it does. military stepping in and having to seize control of our federal government. That is a martial law. You'd call it a coup, but in all honesty, it will be to help our nation. That's why the military will step in. Now, what I'm about to read to you sounds perfectly exact with that. He goes on to say, lawlessness, chaos was shown to me in civil unrest. He said there will be a change in the U.S. currency. A different currency is going to come, at least one. That will entail us no longer being the reserve currency of the world. Now, if you have noticed, the coins have been getting pulled all across America. Well, that must mean that obviously we're going to get a new currency, and I believe, according to a finalwakeupcall.info, that's exactly what's about to happen. Now, let me read an email that I got just yesterday. I'm going to read it almost word for word. See, and I want to thank you, all you people out there that listen and send me emails to AskStan@prophecyclub.com, which, by the way, let me tell you what I'm asking you to do when you send me information to AskStan@prophecyclub.com. I'm asking you to not only give me information that I didn't have, but I'm sort of asking you to, I don't know how to say it, kind of help me. In other words, in terms of if you send me an hour and a half video, and I watch it for an hour and a half, can't tell me how many times I've done that, and I get to the end of it and I say, wonder what I was supposed to see in that. I wonder what they wanted me to point out. I have no idea. So I watched, 90 minutes worth of stuff, have no idea what they were trying to show me. So when you do send me, especially an email that has a video in it, if you would, please tell me what you want me to see and tell me where in that video that you want people to start listening. In other words, let's say you send me even a 45-minute video. Okay, at about the 3-minute mark, they say this and such. Okay, that would really help me. Just sending me a link, and I don't know what I'm supposed to see, you see. Okay, so here's what happened. So I got this email yesterday. I'm going to read it. Have you noticed yet that the messages that Q posts often actually occur 1 year later to the day? I have even seen some that were posted exactly 2 years ahead. He says one of Q's earliest postings from November the 1st of 2017, I'll say it again, one of Q's earliest postings from November 1st, 2017, remember that date, this is amazing. This fits with the recent prophecies. Wow. And I emailed back to him and I said, wow, 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 because it's that big a deal. Wow. He says, I invite you to reread post number 34. Note, this was before Q started to sign his posts with the letter Q. In this one, he published the post as from Anonymous and signed it as Answers, all caps. Now, let me read what he posted. Again, this is posted November 1st, 2017. And the point we're asking ourselves is, could it be that this post was actually telling us at some future November 1st, this will actually be released? That's when this is actually going to take place according to their plan. So it says, November 1, 2017. Our question is this what's going to happen November 1 of 2020? He says, my fellow Americans, over the course of the next several days, you will undoubtedly realize that we are taking back our great country, the land of the free, from the evil tyrants that wish to do us harm and destroy the last remaining refuge of shining light. On POTUS's order, we have been initiated certain fail-safes that shall safeguard the public from the primary fallout which is slated to occur 11.3. Upon the arrest announcement of Mr. Podesta, actionable 11.4, confirmation, to the public of what is occurring will then be revealed and will not be openly accepted. Now, let's just pause for a minute. I don't think that was to be released November 1, 2017. I think it was released November 1, 2017. But I think he's right. I think he's saying that this is the plan starting this year, beginning on November 1, 2020. Let's go on, though. Public riots are being organized in serious numbers. See, that wasn't true back in 2017, okay? Being organized in serious numbers in an effort to prevent the arrest and capture of more senior public officials. There was no talk of any arrests or capture of any public officials back in 2017. Matter of fact, they didn't even start researching those until November the 3rd, I think it's interesting, of 2017. That's when it started. So they weren't ready to arrest. They've still been doing all these investigations for the last 3 years. This wasn't talking about something in 2017. Let's go on. On POTUS order, a state of temporary military control, that's martial law, temporary military control will be actioned and special ops carried out. False leaks have been made to retain several within the confines of the United States to prevent extradition and special operator necessity. This was not going on in 2017, my friends. This, I think, is going to happen in 2020. They're saying November 1, which is 2 days before the election. That means that if that President Trump declares martial law 2 days before the election, guess what? There won't be an election. You see, let's go on. However, the atmosphere within the country will unfortunately be divided, as so many have fallen for the corrupt and evil narrative that has long been broadcast. We will be initiating the emergency broadcast system. Okay, now hang on. What's that? That's where President Trump pushes a button and it interrupts every radio and every TV station. All of them. It stops their broadcast and he can come in and say what he wants to, and it cuts their radio, cuts their TV broadcast off. They have no further control of it, and it was set up, 30 years ago? In other words, he pushes that button and all of the fake news, they're shut up. Everybody in the nation hears the same live broadcast. That's big. That's huge. That's for an emergency. Let's start that sentence again. We will be initiating the emergency broadcast system during this time in an effort to provide a direct message, avoiding the fake news, to all citizens. Organizations and or people that wish to do us harm during this time will be met with swift fury. Certain laws have been pre-lifted to provide our great military the necessary authority to handle and conduct these operations, at home and abroad. POTUS will be well insulated, protected on AF-1, that's Air Force One, and abroad, specific locations classified, while these operations are conducted due to the nature of the entrenchment. It is time to take back our country and make America great again. Let us salute and pray for the brave men and women in uniform who will undertake this assignment to bring forth peace, unity, and return power to the people. It is our hope that this message reaches enough people to make a meaningful impact. We cannot yet telegraph this message through normal methods for reasons I'm sure everyone here can understand. Follow the questions from the previous threads and remain calm. The primary targets are within D.C. and remain at the top, on both sides. The spill over into the streets will be quickly shut down. Look for more false flags, stay alert, be vigilant, and above all, please pray. Then it goes into, I think it's John 3:16 after that. Okay, so now let's put this together. So the prophecy says, for a while we'll have a fractional government because the government comes down to the state level because the military steps in. That's martial law. Then the Q post comes along and says November 1, 2017, or is it really saying November 1 of 2020? See, because this stuff didn't happen back in 2017. They weren't ready. They just started the investigations November 3rd of 2017. That's when they hired John Huber, an investigator out of Utah, and he hired 370 dogged investigators shortly after that. Like 3 days later is when the sealed indictments started piling up. I've done my research on it. Now let's go to the next thing. And we've read part of this, but let me just point out. This comes to us from Pastor Dana Coverstone. He seems to, he's got 1.5 million views in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, a lot of people are listening, but I would also say, for as dynamite as his information is, to only get 1.5 million views just shows you how many people are interested in Bible prophecy. And that's about 1.5 million, maybe you double that. So maybe there's about 3 million out of the 350 million people in America that are interested in prophecy. Anyway, let's go on. He says, I saw Washington, D.C. burning and set ablaze. Does that sound like martial law? Because it does to me. I saw capitals surrounded, State houses, state capitals surrounded, people screaming, making outrageous demands. Here it is. I saw no sign of President Trump, no sign of leadership in Washington, D.C. Why? Why? Well, see, in earlier broadcasts, I asked that question. Why? Why is it President Trump would not be in the Oval Office? Could it be because he declared martial law and he has handed the whole rest of this mess over to his military? I saw that all the curtains pulled in the Oval Office and the White House. I saw nobody moving around. I was shown inside the actual Oval Office, and I saw no one in the office, no one seated in the seat. There was no cabinet members, no secretary, no one in the Oval Office. Martial law? Sounds like it to me. Now let's jump on down to something else he said. I saw fires everywhere. I saw people being rounded up. I saw Chinese and Russian soldiers on the ground. Russian soldiers were telling the Chinese soldiers, go here, go there, pick up these people, round up these people, secure this quadrant, secure this area. I saw blue helmets. Remember that? I saw blue helmets of the UN. Now listen to this. I saw military things taking place. Military things? Is that martial law? I saw people hiding in their homes and garages. I saw churches being burned, homes burned, absolute chaos. I heard the words again, brace yourself, brace yourself, brace yourself. Then in another dream, he also heard, endure to the end. Then he said, I saw briefcases. Now, in our day and age, briefcases are a thing of the past, but I saw piles, stacks and stacks and piles and stacks of briefcases on this long conference table where these men were talking. I saw the former senator from Dakota handling folders sealed. Did you hear that word? Sealed with a clasp. Could it be that these are the sealed indictments? Now let's jump to something more. You remember I read this. Probably early part of 2019. It's dated January 2, 2019. Comes to us from Pastor Corey Musgrave of the NBC Life Church, Fairfield, Illinois. Part of the prophecy says, the streets of the cities across America will flow with the blood of its citizens. The people are throwing off all restraint, and over the next months, those whose hope is not anchored in Christ will turn to violence. Have we not seen that? With a sense of desperation, people will spill one another's blood with the goal of creating peace. Now listen to this. Police departments will be overwhelmed and stand aside. Look, this guy saw this back January 2, 2019. Police departments will be overwhelmed and will stand aside. This will be such a divisive time, some will liken it to civil war, or could you say an internal revolution? These protests will spread across the world like a virus, and they have. Turmoil and desperation will cause some nations to declare military rule, or is that what you say, martial law? The blood spilling into the streets will be opposed with more blood. Overwhelming force will be used. Scenes so shocking, live broadcasts will be stopped. You know, what are they talking about right now? Trump is just saying we're not going to put up with it. We're not going to put up with all this chaos in the streets, and he is threatening to send in the military into Chicago, Seattle, Portland, and who knows where else. Now, on the outside, you might say, oh, well, that's good. He's going to put, or it could stir up the trouble. Look, the protesters are already shooting at the police, hitting them with 2x4s, throwing big chunks of concrete with very sharp edges on them. Really and truly, the protesters that are supposed to be peaceful are already attacking the police. Well, if the military shows up there, my brothers and sisters, it's going to be bad. And then, of course, what happens? Okay, so if one guy pulls out the knife, the next guy pulls out the gun. That guy pulls out the gun. The next guy pulls out the rifle. The next guy pulls out a rifle. The next guy pulls out a bazooka. Okay, so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So if Trump sends in the military into these lawless cities, could that be the thing that starts even more violence? Now let's go to Ken Peters. He had this dream about 45 years ago, and he's called to be a prophet. He says, on my way to make a business transaction, there was an earthquake. Now, that's all I'm going to read of that. Earthquake. Remember that, earthquake. Have we not seen, prior to a lot of this bad stuff, and associated with it, there's a big earthquake? Okay. Now, I'm going to read the next paragraph, first line. Very unusual things began to happen immediately after the earthquake. I'm going to skip and go to the next thing, because this is what we want to hear. Right about that time, the earthquake hit. Very unusual things began happening with the laws. I began to see local municipalities, listen carefully, no longer had police departments. military police were driving very unusual-looking vehicles. Now I know them as Humvees. The vehicles I saw were black and were just about on every corner and main thoroughfare. The back was removed and men standing in the back wearing black uniforms with, listen to this, blue ball caps or blue helmets. I later learned that in 1980, there were no blue helmets or blue ball caps worn by any military on Earth. But today we know them as the United Nations troops. They wear blue helmets. There was a big radio antenna or some sort of device in the back of the Humvee. On the other side in the back, there was a flag. It looked like the guy standing in the back had a gun. He had what I know now to be a laptop on the dash. They could look at this computer and see all kinds of information. They were very peaceful. They were not rude. They were not mean to people. They were not obnoxious. I did not see any looters, anybody getting shot, or anything like that. They seemed to be peaceful. You could not cross state lines without papers. Some states are already doing that over this COVID thing. I saw streetlight stands with little oval-shaped cameras on top of them, which knew the whereabouts of everybody's vehicles. Well, we have those today. They're called cameras on top of every one of the streetlights and traffic lights. The changes took place almost instantly and with complete ease. There was peaceful martial law. Did you hear that? Martial law. There was peaceful martial law. Military vehicles were everywhere. They knew everyone's whereabouts. I found out how they knew this. All nations of the world became as one. There were no longer any sovereign individual nations. Continents were no longer divided into countries, but were divided into regions. The global order had no presence of God in it whatsoever. Evil began to pervade every aspect of society. Darkness was everywhere. There was a clear line between those who were God's people and who were not. You could walk down the street and you would know instantly who was with God and who was not. There was a clear line of delineation. Spiritual demarcation was clearly seen. So this sounds to me like that this is a time when tribulation has started. But then all the rest of the prophecies all seem to be fitting together. Seems to me like there's a time when there's dollars blowing in the wind, and then there's a big earthquake, and then there's martial law, and then an internal revolution, and then the Russians attack. So if this Q post, number 34, posted November 1 of 2017, if this is actually saying that they plan to implement this November 1st of 2020, if they do, and if that's what it's saying, it is saying that by the election time, we will not have an election, but we will have martial law, and many of the arrests that have not taken place at that point will be pretty close to being rounded up. In other words, a great cataclysm is coming to our nation. Let me close with reminding you the headlines to the fall of America. This is the order I believe that they will be fulfilled. Omer ushers in Palestinian state. Catastrophe hits America. And that may be some kind of a New Madrid earthquake, but he didn't say that. So Omer ushers in Palestinian state. Catastrophe hits America. One of America's greatest times of need. Israel refuses help to America. Israel is attacked. America sends troops. Chaos reigns as Americans protest help to Israel. Then she heard my voice quoting Dmitri, the fall of America will start with an internal revolution. Now, we're all very close on many of those, but I'll tell you what, if there's a New Madrid earthquake hits, or if there's a time where Trump somehow forces Israel to split and give the Palestinians a state, then we can probably stick a fork in our nation because we are done. As you know, I make many broadcasts referring to a list of dreams, visions, audible voices I believe are from God, given to Dimitri Duduman, Michael Boldea, Leslie Johnson, Henry Groover, Shane Warren, Terry Bennett, Maurice Sklar, Augusto Perez, Doug Metzger, Bree Keaton, and more. Now you can have your very own copy. It's called God's Warnings to America. 1 for 20, 5 for 30, 10 for 55 at prophecyclub.com. God's Warnings to America at prophecyclub.com. In my new book, Miss the Mark, I expose the 9 deceptions the beast will use to deceive, if it were possible, even the very elect. Since Lucifer is only given 3.5 years to rule the world, but given 6,000 years to prepare for it, is it possible he has set up a 9-point plan so well thought out, so cunning, will deceive all whose name is not written in the book of life? What would you do if you had to tell a person the most important thing in the world, but you knew they wouldn't believe you? What would you do? Would you tell them? I believe you would. But what is the most important thing in the world to tell a person? The answer is, don't take the mark of the beast, because those taking the mark do not get soul death, but eternal torment in hell. But how do you tell them? Give them miss the mark. It is designed to be given to anyone, even if they've never heard of the Bible, Jesus, even if they're in another religion. It takes them from a blank page to making sure they will never take the mark. It's thin and easy to read. 1 for 20, but don't do that. Instead, we make them available in lots of 10. 10 for 25, 20 for 40, 40 for 60. That's 1 for 20, but don't do that. 10 for 25, 20 for 40, and 40 for 60 at prophecyclub.com. That's miss the mark. Don't take the mark of the beast, prophecyclub.com. A couple of years ago, I began to memorize Revelation. Frankly, I didn't even think I'd be able to really memorize the whole thing. I didn't even start at verse 1. I started at verse 8 because the first 7 verses looked too complicated to memorize. But what happened was, as I started memorizing it, I started getting revelations. We're talking about information from the throne of God. Matter of fact, I got 30 revelations and 2 visions and 1 audible voice. The audible voice, I'll go ahead and tell you what that said. The 7 seals play over 7 years. The 7 trumpets play over 7 months. The 7 vials play over 7 days. Unquote. I heard an audible voice tell me that. Now, of course, I had to back that up with Scripture, and I do explain that in the book. But what I was shown is a single word found in Leviticus links through time to the same single word in the book of Revelation. And that single word is first fruits. When you understand that word, all of a sudden the 7 feasts given to Moses are actually a pattern that plays out the last 7 months of the world, starting with first fruits and ending and concluding with tabernacles. Those 7 feasts are a pattern. They portray the way the prophecies of Revelation lay out for the first time. And so far, no one has been able to defeat me on this. I don't think anybody on planet Earth has been given the information in this book. Now, I'm not saying I'm something special. I'm saying it's the last days. And I'm saying that God has given this extra information to the world because we are in the last days. Because the tribulation, 7 years, is about to start. The beast is about to be released into the world. And brothers and sisters, you had better start knowing Bible prophecy. I'm called of God to teach Bible prophecy. You read my book, and I don't think you'll have a question about that. And I don't think you know anything that is in my book. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm just trying to tell you, you get this book and you'll be really, really glad you got it. 1 for 20, 5 for 30, 10 for 55. 1 book for 20, but don't do that. You want to get 5 for 30. That way it gives you 4 books to just give away. Best deal is 10 for 55, and then really kind of a church deal is you get a whole case of them. That's 60 books for a gift of $250. That way, the whole church can just spread them around. You got other books to hand around to other people. 1 for 20, 5 for 30, 10 for 55, 60 for $250. You get it at prophecyclub.com. Prophecyclub.com. The secret door to understand Bible prophecy. 1 for 20, 5 for 30, 10 for 55, case of 60 for a gift of $250. Get the book, read it. Each single Prophecy Club DVD is a gift of $30. In that you know the internet is going away one day, it is a good idea to actually have the disc. However, at watchprophecyclub.com, you can have instant access to over 200 titles on a recurring monthly subscription of $20 or yearly for $200 at watchprophecyclub.com. That's $6,000 worth of information at watchprophecyclub.com. That's watchprophecyclub.com. What a deal.
We would not be here without your prayers and generous financial support.